as Dr. Raghunath would have said, the role is defined, yes, within our constitution. What I thought is that, of course, the Police Service Commission debacle and the issue of the merit list sort of overshadowed the presidency. And, the opposition took a particular stance, and I did as well, that it warranted further interrogation. Unfortunately, our constitution is structured in such a way that without the majority or without the parliament moving for certain procedures to be invoked under Section 36, there could be no inquiry moving forward. I think that damaged the image of the office of the presidency to a large extent. And so one of the things that, unfortunately, a person who had a remarkable legal career, moving all the way up to a Court of Appeal judge, which is rare for women, particularly in this country. It's becoming a little more common now, which is one of the first, I think, if not, still one of the very few women who were elevated to that level of sitting in the Court of Appeal. And what was a very distinguished legal career has now, I think, been overshadowed somewhat by that particular debacle. Not so much because of what happened. Yes, everyone has their views about what happened, but I think the lack of answers and the lack of clarification and the lack of further, it was almost as though there was a concerted effort to sweep the entire thing under the carpet, which simply fuels the fire and adds credibility to the view that something went wrong and there was a massive attempt at a cover-up, for want of a better word. Apart from that, I think, of course, anyone knowing our history, that the presidency is sort of an evolved way of looking at the monarchy, right? And if you look at other countries where you had sort of a ceremonial head of state in the form of the monarchy and so on, that countries moving into the 21st century looked to the monarchy as not just a historical, something that's just there, an institution that you just have to keep and support with the taxpayers' dollars, but you wanted some value from it. And the monarchy in England actually evolved in a way that tried to bring a little more, value to the people who support them. And that was a way of keeping the monarchy alive. And I think that the office of the president needs to evolve a little bit. And one thing that stands out to me, there were a couple of examples, but one of the things that stood out to me particularly, and to many people during the course of this particular presidency, perhaps because she was the first woman president, that Her Excellency's silence when the country was in an uproar over the issue of violence against women. There were a couple of weeks where we had several gatherings, public gatherings, and sort of like, an outpouring of grief, anger, frustration, and several calls being made for action when it came to violence against women on the heels of the Ashanti Riley and Andrea Barrett murders, right? And of course, it was a public discussion. It was in the media every day, dominating media, and there was silence from the office of the president until, I think, International Women's Day. That a written message was delivered. Now, I'll tell you what that says to me, and I consider myself to be sort of like, I say old young, right? Like I'm in the middle there. I don't consider myself a young person like some of you. I don't consider myself an older person. I consider myself one of those people who grew up in that generation where we understood the politics of Patrick Manning and 𝗏𝘅𝑒w Pandey, and we saw it, and now we're looking at the politics as we go forward, and we're looking at what happens around the world with the Rishi Sunaks and the Obamas and things like that, right? We're moving along. And I thought that it reminded me of when there was this outpouring of grief over the death of Princess Diana. And nobody in the United Kingdom expected the royal family to respond in such a way, but the public pressure for a response. I don't know if you are maybe too young to remember 1997, but you remember the Queen actually doing a televised message about the death of Diana and all of this, which was so unprecedented at the time. But you respond, even though you're technically a ceremonial figurehead, you respond to what the people want, because you show the people that you are not simply this aloof figurehead that you get carted out once a year to wave at a parade and to make appointments and hand out handouts, appointment certificates and letters of appointment and so on to people who hold office. I think that is something that it became extra evident, not simply because of who the president was, but just our society evolving to that point where we're asking ourselves, I don't think that in the past we had as many people questioning the role and the value of that office. And again, it doesn't necessarily come about as a result of who the person is, but I think it's just the way our society is moving forward and what we want to see. And so those are some of the things that stand out to me from this past term of office of the president.